Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Money Down Pod. That is my guy, Sean White. You can follow him on Twitter at DumpsterFireFan, myself at Kayvon_sports. You can give the show a follow at Money Down Pod on Twitter. Like, subscribe. If you are watching on YouTube, give us a comment in the comment section. And as always, we will answer back as we always do. We appreciate a lot of you that have jumped on board recently. We've noticed we got a lot new followers out there that are tuning in. So we just want to say thank you guys. Stick around for a little bit. I really think you will like what you're hearing. We try and give a little bit of a different perspective on some of the hottest, most intriguing topics out there in the sports world. And I don't think there's anything more intriguing right now, especially if you're a college football fan, than what's going on with Texas and Arch Manning. You know, one of the, if not the biggest recruit in college football history. Whether that's fair or not, because of his name or because of his skill, we'll find out as it goes, committing to Texas. I mean, that is the storyline. Since then, I'm pretty sure I saw this right, Sean. I think 10, since the date, which was like a week ago or less even, I think 10 recruits have already committed to Texas after Arch Manning made his announcement. Just in those like 5 days since that happened, 10 people have followed him on board there. And I'm not just talking about normal recruits. I'm talking about 4 or 5-star recruits. This is what happens when you land a guy like Arch Manning. It definitely takes some pressure off of Sark's back. Even if they have a bad season this year, Sark is going to be there because he's got to be there for Arch. He's still going to have pressure because it's Texas. But all in all, if you are a Texas fan, I'm not going to be the one to come on here and say that you're back because I think that's just ridiculous. We got to see them play first. But you should be very, very happy if you're a Texas fan right now.
Yeah, completely agree with that. And that's rare to hear from me because I'm probably one of the biggest Texas and Tennessee haters out there, but I'm going to have to give both of them props when we talk about it today, just off of the quarterbacks they have coming in. And getting Arch is huge for Texas, man. That's a huge recruit. And like you said, you've got about 8 to 10 others that have already signed on to go with Arch right there. They're really wanting that brand recognition. They want to go play with the guy. He's very magnetic in that way. And that's something that you're not used to seeing at a high school level. You see that with NBA stars. You see that with some NFL players. You see that with more so like groups of players from high schools or AAU programs that play together. They'll go as a package deal. You're seeing a lot of people come through that Arch don't even play with, that they just want to be part of that Arch Manning branding, to go to Texas and be a part of this revival that actually for the first time might legit lead them to being back, which I've always thought was pretty crazy to hear all these years talking about how Texas is back, and they just always end up coming up small really at the end. I mean, they lost to Kansas last year. Let's be honest, that's just crazy in itself. And Kansas is a joke of a program most of the time. So them getting Arch really does do a lot for their recruiting classes, and more importantly, it buys Sark time because Texas isn't patient, man. And we talked about this last year. Were people putting Sark on the hot seat a little bit last year? I would say some people out there were kind of giving him some heat. And that's just on a down year without his recruits and everything. And they were already kind of getting at him a little bit. So Texas is one of those places that's a hotbed. This Arch Manning commitment definitely buys Sark some time to at least be there with him and really extend him out another 2-3 years, even if they underachieve for the next 1 or 2. I think that's the big thing to look at here. Not just the recruiting, not just getting a Manning to come to your school, not just the other recruits, but now Sark kind of has more job security than you really would have thought he had going into the year this year.
Yeah, without a doubt. And there's a couple layers of this we're going to get into. There's obviously 2 guys behind him in Nico, who's going to Tennessee, playing in Josh Heupel's offense, and Malachi Nelson, who's going to USC, playing in Lincoln Riley's offense. We'll get into them in a minute, but just for those that don't follow recruiting heavily, in any normal year, what I mean by normal year, when Arch Manning is not in the class, both of those guys are going to be the number 1 commits in the class. Like, that's how good those guys are. So you're going to have 3 QBs in the 2023 class that are going to go into these high-profile colleges absolutely ready to roll and most likely start. But I want to get into just Arch himself here for a second, Sean, because I actually kind of appreciate how he went about this. I think he's doing something really smart. First of all, he's paving his own way, right? He's not following Eli and going to Ole Miss. He's not following Peyton and going to Tennessee. He's doing something completely different. Completely different. He's going to Texas, man. Like, you know, Peyton has joked about all the time how Tennessee's the real UT, and like he's going against all that, and he's going to Texas, and he's also, a lot of people were astonished, were shocked that he didn't go to Georgia. I actually think this was the smart move, and it's not because of what Georgia, they would be amazing with Arch there. It's just his end goal at the end of the day is going to be to play in the NFL just like his uncles. That's his end goal. Now, he's not going to be one of these kids that are going to be rushing to get into the NFL or rushing to get some big NIL deal, because let's just be real, he doesn't need that stuff. He is literally the nieces of Peyton and Eli Manning, and and his grandfather is Archie Manning. So like he doesn't need that type of stuff. Is he going to get NIL deals? I'm sure he will. But I think he did the right thing for just him paving his own way. First of all, he's going to go to an offense that is going to help him thrive. Sark's offense is incredible, man. A lot of people want to talk about what he did in Alabama, and some, it's Nick Saban. Sark is the one that modeled a lot of those quarterbacks that we saw there in Alabama. He's the one that got a lot of those quarterbacks ready to go. Sark has a really good offense, and I just think if he went to Georgia, because all the rumors were it came down to those two schools, I think if he went to Georgia, he still would have been great, but I think his talent could have gotten bogged down a little bit because their system isn't built for quarterbacks to shine. That's just not how they're built. They're built to just play literally complementary football. Phenomenal defense, run the ball, and at the end of the day, let the quarterback make the big throw if he can. And that's what they do. Texas, they're going to put everything on Arch. Arch is going to have to go out there and win the games for them, but they're going to do it in a very quarterback-friendly offense. So I just think he made the right decision based off the strategy, based off the scheme and everything like that. And then I also think he made the right decision by blazing his own path. I respect that. Sometimes, it's easy to say, man, screw this. I'm going to go to Ole Miss. I'm going to go somewhere where my family's, comfortable. He said, no, I'm going to do something different. I respect him making that decision.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, and I love that point as well. I think another thing that can't be understated is one thing you definitely are going to learn from Eli and Peyton, and if there's any knowledge that they can instill, is how important offensive line play is for a young quarterback, and especially one making a leap. And I'll tell you what, with the offensive line recruiting class that Texas got just this year, they're going to be the ones as juniors playing in front of Arch. That's a group that's all four, I'd say probably four at least get drafted very highly, and then probably all five really get drafted and make the league. Yeah. They're all really good players. As long as they get developed right and get the weight they need to put on for the next level, that offensive line should be very dominant by the time that he steps in as a freshman. That is assuming that Ewers plays the next 2 years, which we'll get into. But by the time he's a freshman, you're going to look at a dominant offensive line game, and you're going to have time to throw. And I'm sure that's one thing growing up that Peyton and Eli definitely instilled in him, that, hey, it's all about that protection up front. Yeah. You need to be able to slide this protection and do all that. But the more time you have, the more you're going to be able to dice up people no matter what, use your smarts, use your arm, and do all that. So I'm sure Arch looked at that as well. What you're saying about Sark is definitely correct. Sark's one of the better play callers there is. Sometimes his head coaching would be hit and miss. We all knew what happened at USC with the personal issues. Now he's came back. He's been a good play caller for your Atlanta Falcons. He was a good play caller for Saban and Bama. I mean, after he left the Falcons, y'all's play calling hadn't been the same since Arthur Smith. It's just fell off. So now you have a play caller who was texting people during the national championship talking about, look at Mac Jones, look at these plays I'm going to dial up, watch what I can do when you get to my team, doing all this and that. Sark's got a little bit of confidence behind him now. He's going to be able to dial up good game plans with Arch Manning, and I fully expect he's going to be able to dial it up with Quinn Ewers. I just don't know what's taking so long with that announcement. What are you feeling about Ewers right now after that commitment? I don't think it's going to be a rub or an issue. I feel like Sark's probably going to have to put Ewers out there for another year or two just to look good to the other recruits, unless Arch comes in and blows them away or something. But Ewers was a higher rated recruit, in my opinion, coming out of high school than Arch is. So it's kind of weird that they haven't really announced him as the full-time starter right now either. That's kind of worrisome for me.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest storylines going into this. So I saw 24/7, who is one of the, I think they like own recruiting. They do the best recruiting stuff, since they started doing recruiting, there's 3 quarterbacks that have a 1,000 scale, like a 1.0 scale. And it was Vince Young, Quinn Ewers, and Arch Manning. All 3 of them went to Texas, right? So your point on Quinn Ewers being a better or just as good recruit, I mean, they're telling us that as well. So Quinn Ewers was talked about in the light of Arch Manning. He just didn't have the last name Manning. Like, he was being talked about as the savior of Texas, or before he went to Ohio State, the one to win Ohio State national championship. The thing about this to me is, I'll tell you what's going to be tough for Ewers, man. Arch is going to walk into that locker room and he's going to win over every single teammate in the matter of a second because of his you could just tell by his personality. Ewers has a personality that is more like Baker Mayfield. Whether you think that's fair to say or not, that's just facts. If you just watch the guy, just watch how he acts, watch his interviews, he is very, very cocky. While Arch is modest. Arch just kind of puts things on. He just gives the other, from what I've seen, that can obviously change, but obviously Arch is learning from people that have done it before, so it's different. And I'm not saying Ewers' personality is a downfall or anything, but we know in sports that players are attracted to the personality of an Arch more than the personality of a Ewers. So if Arch comes in there and wins over that locker room, and Ewers isn't playing great, maybe he's playing good, but he's not playing great. Sean, you're telling me that you don't think Sark's going to – I think Sark will start Arch as soon as possible. Like, do you think Arch comes in and actually rests for a couple years? You really believe that might happen?
I think he rests for one. I think he sits for one. That's if Ewers is playing at a high level.
Okay.
Like a top 10 draft pick level.
Yeah.
I don't think Sark's going to force Ewers, who's a top 10 draft pick, after he plays. We'll see it next year. If he plays well next year, it'll be his job going in no matter what. As long as he plays well enough. That's how I feel about it, because I don't think you're going to see Sark force out another recruit that high just to bring Arch in and do that. But again, Arch could just come in and dominate the locker room. We saw Trevor Lawrence come in behind a very respected veteran there in Bryant that was there with Clemson. And Lawrence came in as this top recruit, didn't start to start with, but he won that locker room over, man. The people in the locker room loved him, and he never let go of that. He had the leadership qualities. He for the haters, and as bad as he played his first year on the football field, his leadership was never in question. He's still a very good leader in the NFL right now, and that's the type of personality that Arch has as well that I can tell you're pointing at. They have very, very quarterback mindsets when it comes to leadership. They lead the men out there, and that's what they do. Ewers, you're right. Ewers rubs people the wrong way a little bit. Let's be honest. You see the reports out there, and Ewers does give off a little bit of it's a me thing vibe. Yeah. He does do that, and I feel like that's a constructive criticism thing that's out there. That's just what it is. But Ewers, let's be honest about Ewers. Let's break down some recruiting stuff right quick, just between the two of them. Ewers as a prospect is better than Arch Manning.
Agreed.
I completely agree with that. He has a stronger arm. He played at a much higher level of competition in Texas than Arch plays right now. So he was the better prospect. But what you are saying is true, and that's the X factor is he going to be able to lead a team out there and do this? And does Arch just come in and take over the locker room? That's the one thing you got to watch out for. That's a very good point by you.
Which I'll doubt, because you can, look, like you can see it in what's already happened. Ewers literally – And I'm not faulting him for this, because he took the money. He went to Ohio State, took a very big NIL deal, and then didn't even play a second, which he wasn't going to. C.J. Stroud was there, and then transferred the next offseason to go to Texas and take another big NIL deal. Not to mention he left high school early, left for his teammates, which was a big topic at that point, to go take that money. Again, not faulting him. I would probably do the exact same thing, but Arch is going about it. I love the comparison to Trevor Lawrence, because that's exactly how it's going to be. He is going to be just like Trevor Lawrence in terms of a leader, and the teammates are going to love him, man. And if Ewers has one downfall, and it's Arch Manning, we're not talking about just some 5-star that's really good. We're talking about the last name Manning. Those people at Texas, those boosters, are going to be up Sark's ass farther than you can ever see to get Arch Manning out on that field, unless Ewers has them in the college football playoff picture and he's looking like he's going to be a top 10 pick. So you're spot on when you say we are going to learn what happens with it this year. And even if Ewers goes out there, man, and has a phenomenal year, if he starts off next year bad, I don't care what he did last year. Texas forgets Arch is going to go in right away. The line on Ewers is going to be so tight because of Arch Manning back there, and it just makes me wonder. And I think that this is what Ewers has going for him. Again, back to the personality. I don't think Arch was like, because a lot of people that is Arch's qualities, they could have said, listen, if you want me to come to Texas, you have to promise me that I'm going to start like right when I get there. I mean, these kids do that if they're that good. I don't think Arch is someone that did that. I think Arch is okay with sitting for a year. I think he would be totally fine with sitting for a year. I think he would rather play, obviously. I'm not saying he doesn't want to play, but I think he would be fine with it. And that's the one thing Ewers has going for him. I think that Arch isn't going to come on there and just like bully Ewers into making Ewers like, Ewers is going to be nervous because it's Arch Manning behind him, but he's not going to pressure Sark and the organization and the college to put him out there. If Ewers is playing well, he's going to respect that. But Ewers has to play well. Otherwise, he's going to be transferring for a third time.
Yeah, out of those big three quarterbacks in that class, I mean, Arch definitely is the one that like could push Ewers out of it, because if you look at it, Malachi is going to sit behind Caleb Williams no matter what. Like Caleb Williams is just already bona fide. He's going to play well enough, and Lincoln Riley already has a history. Kyler sat behind Baker, like he sits people behind him for a year. That's what Lincoln does. Nico's going to start. I don't care what you say. Tennessee's paying him $8 million, and these Tennessee fans, for as much hell as I give them, they're going to push him out there. He's going to start. Yeah. So it's really Arch that you're going to have to look at, because Ewers is kind of that one that's in between. Could he be a Caleb type that goes that high in the draft? He could. Could he also be someone that rubs people the wrong way and gets booted off and has to transfer? He could. This is going to be one of the most intriguing storylines going forward, because that's going to be something else. Arch has a lot of pressure on him, though. He has more pressure on him than really any quarterback coming out since Trevor Lawrence, because Trevor Lawrence was talked about as such a huge high school prospect. Him and Justin Fields.
Even more.
Even more so with the last name. Yeah. Even more so with the last name. Fields and Lawrence came out at the same time in that class, both with immense pressure, and both came out and performed at the highest level. Arch is going to have a lot of pressure on him, because right now he's got this rating, and I know you feel this way. I think you have him as the third quarterback in the class, and I have him right there as like 2A, 2B with Malachi. I think Nico is the better quarterback out of this group. In my opinion, that's who I feel is the best quarterback.
Me too. I think Nico's number one. I have Malachi number two, and I have Arch three. And a lot of people are going to go, what? Because of the way people are talking about Arch, but it's not even a disrespect to Arch. It's just, I'm telling you, and Sean's telling you, Nico and Malachi are different. They're different. And as good as Sark's system is, I think Lincoln's is better. And I think Malachi is going to look really good in Lincoln's system. And Sark's amazing. I just think that, like this is the thing that Trevor and Fields, especially Fields, had going for him. They went to places where those offenses had some serious skill position, especially Fields. I mean, Ohio State was stacked. Texas is getting to that point now with all these 5 stars they're getting, but it's not like he's walking into Ohio State offense that is just going to be littered with 5-star receivers all over him. Maybe by the time he starts, it will be like that. I just think that the pressure that's going to be on Arch is absurd, which then goes to the point of, I think it will help Nico and Malachi even thrive even more, because I think we're going to be so focused on Arch. Not us, because we're going to talk about Nico and Malachi because that's what we do. But majority of the population is going to be so focused on Arch that we're going to start to see Nico and Malachi just take off. And that's going to be the conversation. And it's going to be like, well, is Arch playing to that level? And he's going to have to right off the bat, or the pressure is just going to be enormous.
Listen, if Nico plays well, no one's going to get talked about more than him with Tennessee. Like the way these Tennessee fans are, they've been waiting to talk about something for this long. So that is one thing that Nico's going to have going. It's not going to be just us. He's going to have some hype around him as well. So I do like that about it. But right now, the recruiting hype on Arch is crazy. It's just the other two for me. Let me be honest with the recruiting thing. The other two for me just play better competition. Arch plays at a way smaller school in Louisiana. Like he doesn't play the competition, and especially Nico. Nico's at the highest level in California out there. Like he plays big dogs out there.
Yeah.
So that's the real discrepancy for me. It's the level of competition. It's not really as much of a knock, whereas other people might look that way. But Texas is going to be the most high profile thing to watch the next 2 years in college football. And then with Arch coming in the rest of the time, they're going to have so much pressure just from boosters, from outside forces. This is going to be a big storyline to continue. And I'm excited that we get to see it right here with three teams that I always kind of go at USC, Tennessee, and Texas. They have three big-time quarterback recruits, so it's going to be fun to watch these fan bases and watch these teams kind of try to resurrect their status in college football because they've been dormant for a while now.
It's phenomenal for college football. It is phenomenal for college football. There's nothing better than college football than when we're talking about Texas at a high level, when we're talking about Southern California, and when we're talking about Tennessee. And that's what we're going to be doing. And one last thing, and then let's move on here to talk some ACC division realignment. The last thing I want to hit on, we kind of hit on it in the beginning. Again, this is huge for Sark as well. Sark worked his ass off to get these recruits. He deserves credit, and he's going to have his job for much longer. They can't fire. I don't care how bad this year's goes, and it will be bad. If he has Quinn Ewers out there and it goes bad, and he has all those 5-star offensive linemen, which, by the way, I think in every single offensive lineman is a 5-star player. That's why you mentioned they're going to be in college. I mean, pro, most likely. Ewers, no matter what, Sark has some time because they can't fire the coach that recruited Arch Manning before Arch Manning gets there. They can't. They cannot risk losing Arch Manning. I don't care. I don't care what people say is these kids go to the school. They go to the coach a lot of the times. He's putting his faith in Sark. I don't care how grabby and jumpy these boosters are. They cannot fire Sark until Arch Manning at least gets there and plays a year. So Sark's job is safe, and rightfully so because he went out and got a lot of these recruits, including Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. Let's move on to this here. Really, really big news. Some news that me and Sean are really fascinated about, and actually we both really agree that we like this, and that's the ACC starting in 2023 is going to move to a whole different division format. They're taking away the two conferences completely. It's just going to be one big conference, and every team is going to have three primary opponents that they play every single year, no matter what. No matter what, they will play these three teams every single year. And then the other 10 the other 10 teams will play 2 times during a 4-year cycle of once at home and once at away. So like a home and away type split thing, they'll play 2 times throughout the 4-year cycle. If that doesn't make sense, to give you an example, Clemson, their primary 3 teams will be Florida State, Georgia Tech, and NC State. So no matter what, every single year, Clemson will play Florida State, Georgia Tech, and NC State, and then they'll rotate home and away with the other 10 opponents throughout the 4 years. That's how it goes. So, Sean, looking at some of these division opponents, what did you get out of this? What do you get about this new model? And who's a winner and loser in your eyes from what we're seeing here in the ACC?
Yes, I love the model. I like the idea that you keep some of the good rivalries you have. You keep some of that, and then you also just rotate it throughout the conference so you can balance out the schedule a little bit more. Even though it's not fully balanced, you balance it more so than it was with the divisions. Then you take the top 2 records, they play for the ACC, then you hope to make the postseason afterwards. I love the setup of it. I think it's good. I think you still get the nice rivalry games. We're from the Triangle area, so you get the UNC and the Duke. The UNC still plays NC State. NC State plays Duke, so those rivalries still go on. You still get the Florida State, Miami. You get the big time matchups every year, but then you get to rotate it around. But with that system does come some winners and losers because you aren't going to fully play some of these stronger ones. And I think everyone would obviously like to avoid Clemson. And now that Miami's kind of getting their recruiting swing back and everything, you probably want to avoid Miami as well. Those are the 2 that you try to avoid. So I would say that To be honest, NC State kind of lost out here a little bit.
Without a doubt, they're a huge
Yeah.
loser.
Having to pull Clemson every year, that's just something else. And I know NC State plays them tough, man. NC State always gives them a run. That's always a good game between the two. I think the NC State fans likes playing Clemson. I think they respect Clemson. But I do think that's just a tough situation when you're trying to build a program to really start to compete more nationally and really go after things. It's really tough to play a Clemson team every single year that just reloads. I think a big winner – and the NC State fans are going to hate this. I do think UNC actually caught a break.
I agree.
They didn't catch the biggest break, in my opinion, but they caught a break. They're out there playing Duke every year. It's a rivalry game, but I mean, let's be real. Duke in football, it's not basketball. No. They do play NC State, which is going to be a rivalry game, a tough game, but it's not like they're playing Clemson out there. No. And then they also get Virginia. So they avoided that Clemson. They avoided Miami. And if Virginia Tech or Florida State was to get it rolling, they avoid them too. So really, if you look at the top 5 recruiting powers in the ACC, UNC avoids all of them while being one. I think that's the way you become a big winner out of that.
Yeah, I think that you're spot on about State and UNC. I think UNC, with the way they're recruiting too, I think they're set up to seriously do some things now because of who they avoided. I mean, you hit it on the nail. I think the biggest loser in this, man, is Florida State.
Oh,
because Florida State got Clemson and Miami. The two teams that everybody wants to get away from, they got both of them. Sean, they're the only team that drew both of them. And the reason they had to is because they're a rival with Miami. So you can't not give them Miami. And then it's also Florida State and Clemson over the last 5 years before Florida State just ducked down. Maybe like when Jameis was there.
Yeah, when Jameis was there.
When Jameis was there, Clemson and Florida State, they created a rivalry because it was Jameis against Deshaun. Those were really good battles when that was going on there. So they got those two guys, and then they got Syracuse, which Syracuse, whatever, they're not great, but just the fact that they got those two guys makes them, to me, the biggest loser. Another winner that I'll add on to, I agree with UNC, is Wake Forest. They got Duke, they got Georgia Tech. Both of those football programs have been terrible. I understand David Cutcliffe did some good things. He's gone now. I like the coach that they hired, but we got to see it. And then they got Virginia Tech. And look, Virginia Tech is a really good program. They have a lot of promise. But let's be honest with Virginia Tech. They've been bad lately. They have been bad. So looking at the programs right now, Duke, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, with the way Wake Forest is heading up, they should be able to handle their business each and every year until at least Virginia Tech and hopefully Duke get their act together and go from there. So those are some programs that I think really, really won out. And then again, Miami to me is Florida State to me is just the biggest loser. And you could even say Miami's one of the biggest winners, depending on how you view Louisville and Florida State. I actually like Boston College. I think that they have a decent program, but they're not. The main thing is they didn't get Clemson. That's the main thing. And for a program that's trying to shoot up, like you mentioned, and you don't get Clemson, that's a big win for them.
Yeah, that's a huge win. And I do want to touch on Virginia Tech a little bit because they're kind of the sleeping giant in here. Yeah. If they can get back to their prominence, to how they used to recruit, how they used to go, that's a big ask because it's a different landscape now.
Yes.
But Virginia Tech does have the fan base support and everything. It's just they're not going to have the NIL money to be throwing around at everything. Yeah. But Virginia Tech as a football school was actually a pretty dominant football school for a while. People love Virginia Tech. Yeah. Their fans are still very passionate about it. They have one of the better entrances, one of the better home crowds. And if you really look at that, Pitt's up and down. Pitt had a good year with Pickett last year, but before that, they really were dropped off. Virginia, you never know with Virginia, man. Yeah. Virginia could come out and pop you for 10, or they could come out and win 3 games. You never know with Virginia, so that's a good up and down. And then really, it's that swing, man, between them and Wake Forest. You could really see a flip-flop between who's a top 3 in the ACC type competitor and who's down there at the 6-7 range. So really, those two kind of mirror each other in a way. Wake Forest is the better team right now and the better program, but Virginia Tech has the trajectory to also take advantage of that and kind of leap up and be that Wake Forest right now and be a challenger to the top 2, which is obviously a Miami and a Clemson. You're right about Miami. I don't think they fear Louisville at all. I really don't think they fear Florida State unless Dion goes there. Let's be real. And then Boston College, for as good as they can play and they can give people fits, I don't think Miami really has to worry about that.
No.
I think Miami after this year can just out talent basically anyone but Clemson in thing, and maybe UNC here and there, but mostly just Clemson. It's going to be Miami and Clemson that are the top two recruit getters out there. And again, that's why UNC is my big winner. They avoid both of them. That's crazy for them.
Yeah, it really is crazy. One other thing I love just being here in North Carolina, we're both from North Carolina. I love that State's finally going to be playing Duke again. I think it's absurd that State wasn't playing Duke every year. I think that's the dumbest thing ever because they weren't in the same conference. They played UNC every year in football. They would not play Duke a lot at all. And finally, they get to play Duke again. Again, that's not going to be something nationally that people care about. And it's even local. It's not that great, but it's just State should be playing Duke every single year. And State should be playing Carolina every single year. I'm glad that they are playing each other. What's going to get interesting is how they rotate who they play outside of that and the home and away. I mean, I really wish that every conference, we talked about this off air. I wish every conference would do this, man. It's exciting because you know 3 teams that you're playing no matter what. And then after that, it's like you see who you get for your 2 home and aways for the next couple years. Like, I really love what the ACC did here. I think that this was the best way to make it fair because the divisions were unfair. The Atlantic was always better than the Coastal, at least the last couple of years, because of how dominant Clemson has been and how down Virginia Tech has been. And this creates a way to make it, look, again, teams are going to complain. Clemson, if they really wanted to, they could complain. They got Florida State and State. That sucks for them, but they're not going to because it's Clemson. Miami or Florida State could complain, but hopefully they're not going to. At the end of the day, I love what the ACC did here.
Yeah, I do too. And we talked off air. I really wish the SEC and the Big Ten would adopt something like this because let's be honest, they do have some lopsided divisions in both those. The SEC West, I mean, the SEC West is just so superior to every other conference. It's crazy the way the SEC West is. I would love if they kind of adopted a system like that where you get an Alabama and plays Auburn and Tennessee every year. And then you can rotate that. Georgia, you make sure they play Florida still. I mean, with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, Texas has to play A&M and Oklahoma every year. That would be a great matchups. I would love that. Then you look at the Big Ten. You obviously Ohio State and Michigan play each other. Michigan State, and Ohio State. Those 3 kind of lock in. You get Penn State throwing in there. I would love to see a system like that just to guarantee some of these rivalries and then to really balance out the conference because the SEC West really is murderer's row and it almost gives them the excuse to be able to lose 2 games and make it because their schedule's so crazy.
Yeah.
And I would like it better if they just balance that schedule out to really get a better feel of who the number 1 team in the SEC is.
I agree. I mean, look, for us fans, it's going to be awesome, especially this year with the way every single team in the SEC West is pointed up, except maybe Auburn. I mean, every single team is just up. Mississippi State with Leach, Texas A&M with Jimbo is as high as it's possibly going to get right now. The Ole Miss is up with Lane Kiffin. It's like every single team is phenomenal, and it's just freaking Arkansas. Arkansas is looking great. Like it's absurd how these teams are going to have to play each other. And then on the other end in the Big Ten, you kind of have this, it's nowhere near the SEC West, but you kind of have the same thing for the Big Ten East where Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, they're all on the same side. So they all play each other. And then when you get to the Big Ten title game, they're playing against, no offense to a Wisconsin or a Northwestern. They're playing against someone that it's just like a little bit of a because they already played all these tough teams in their division there. So I would love to see them split it up. I don't know if the other conferences will do it, but I do give a hand to the ACC for stepping out and doing something like this.
Yeah, it's going to make for some good football in 23. It's going to be a really good schedule to watch, and that's something to keep an eye on in the future for all the rest of the conferences as well.
No doubt. This is the Money Down Pod. That is Sean White. I'm Kayvon Zombie. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Listen, we're going to be doing, now that we're getting into July here, we're going to be putting out videos every single week. We're really going to get into our college football previews. Since this is a college football show, I thought I'd go ahead and mention that. And then for you fantasy players out there, me and Sean die for fantasy. We love it. We are going to bring a whole new just content level of fantasy football to you guys like you've never seen from this channel. So we've seen the new viewers come in. We've seen the ratings go up. We appreciate it. Give us a like, and subscribe if you're watching, and stick around because we have a lot of good content coming. That's going to be awesome moving forward. So we've got all of that coming. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here, Sean?
No, just appreciate the new viewers. Glad to have y'all in. I know we had a good amount of views on the last NBA draft thing that you did. Kayvon's a former scout, so if you want to see some of that next week, we'll probably recap the draft a little bit with a little bit of the free agency stuff that happens in the NBA before we move straight on into football and charge forward for that. So yeah, keep going with us. If you want to say anything, let us know. We're kind of a show for the people. If you don't agree with us, we love to go back at you. If you do agree with us, please let us know. We love to hear the feedback. So yeah, just keep watching and keep liking, keep commenting. We'll be around.
Yeah, and the best possible way to cover fantasy football is by making it interactive with you guys. So we see a lot of you guys watching. If we can get more interaction for content for comments wise, we can really do some cool things. I mean, we can do a lot. Like we give our top 10 in fantasy football rankings. We get your top 10 and we give it live on air and we go through it. We can even do a fan mock draft where we get all the fans involved and do a mock draft with us two leading the way and you guys around. We just got to get more of the interaction. Again, we see you guys watching. Just give us a comment and then we can go from there because we will be bringing a ton of fantasy football content moving forward as we head into July. So thank you for listening. Give my guy Sean a follow at Dumpster Fire Fan, myself at Kayvon_sports. If you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate it. Go ahead and comment in the comment section. If you're listening through Apple or iTunes or iHeart, any way you're listening, we appreciate it. And it means the world to us for you guys sticking around. So talk to you again later on this week.